Friday, we're back for another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm your host, Nnamdi Osuagwu. Thank you for joining in. Really appreciate it. We are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and we also have a stream going on from Instagram. So welcome all for joining on this Friday. Once again, if you're on Instagram, please go to the techbehindfintech.com. Or you can post your questions straight on Instagram. If you go to the techbehindfintech.com and watch it live there, your comments will be part of the video or your questions. So we have two cameras going on. That's the Instagram one. This is the LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch camera. Once again, all questions, comments definitely welcomed. We'll post it. We don't have the answer for you. We'll get it to you moving forward. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the news of the week that we will be covering. All right, so first one, top European bankers warn of recession, China and U.S. banks. So this is from the perspective of Deutsche Bank. That's a German bank. And everyone's talking about, recession. What does that mean? So let's get into the definition textbook of recession, and then we're going to get into what their CEO is talking about. So a recession can be defined as a sustained period of weak or negative growth in real GDP output that's accompanied by a significant rise in unemployment. So this is from the perspective of Germany per se. So Deutsche Bank, their chief CEO, Christian Sewing, painted a bleaker assessment of the German economy, warned on Wednesday that China was a considerable risk for the nation and that Europe needed big banks to fend off American competitors. So the CEO of the nation's top lender said Germany would no longer be able to avert a recession after it became too dependent on Russian energy. So as you know, with the Russian-Ukraine war, there's different sanctions going on in Russia. So because of that, a lot of global powers have halted business dealings. So Russia has halted its gas supplies via a major pipeline to Germany, intensifying an economic battle between Moscow and Europe and raising prospects of recession and energy rationing in some of the region's richest country. Sewing, speaking at a banking conference in Frankfurt, said Europe had learned how dangerous it was to be too dependent on individual countries or regions. So a couple of stuff from that. He also said Germany now faced an awkward question of dealing with China, given its increasing isolation and growing tension. Since the Ukraine's war outbreak, European banks have been thrown into turmoil, trying to cut ties with Russia, executing an array of stiffer sanctions against Moscow, and navigating an uncertain, weakening economy. Also note, Mark Branson, the head of Germany's financial market regulator, BaFin, said in the conference that his institute was still trying to determine where the energy-related risks are in banks' credit portfolio. So once again, this is the perspective of a German bank, speaking of Germany and the recession there, but everything's connected. So be interesting to see how these things develop. Okay, let's move on to our next article. ING and CCV app turns mobile phones into payment terminals. So ING and a payment solutions provider, CCV, have developed an app that makes any Android smartphone or tablet a payment terminal for contactless payments. Dutch department store HEMA will be the first retail chain to pilot the new payment method from mid-September into 3 of its stores. So it's very interesting. Let's get into that. CCV says it developed the app in collaboration with ING, Cowhills, and Zebra. ING will be responsible for processing payment transactions to retailers, while software firm Cowhills will provide mobile checkout solution running on Zebra mobile devices used by retailers. The new app offers major advantages to retailers, says Kees Van Delt, CEO of Cowhills. So very interesting, right? So it's no longer necessary to reserve a lot of floor space for cash registers because the mobiles take over as this role, becoming flexible and suited. Currently, the app offers contactless payments with Mastercard, Visa, Maestro, and VPay through Apple Pay and Google Pay. If the pilot works out, ING plans for a large-scale rollout. So what's happening? Essentially, they have they're turning any tablet or mobile device into a cash register. So if you think about it, in a retail shop, there's no need to walk to the cash register. Anyone that works there with this device can basically check you out and pay for stuff. So very interesting development. Once again, they're doing a pilot right now. The pilot works out, they're going to expand that offering. Okay, let's move on to the next. This one, I really like this this article. Mastercard and Ajman Bank launched payment card for the visually impaired. So Mastercard and Ajman Bank have unveiled an accessible payment card that lets blind and partially sighted people facilitate payments and distinguish between their cards. The side of the Mastercard Touch Card has a system of notches to help customers who are blind or who have reduced vision determine whether they're holding a credit, debit, or prepaid card. It is estimated that 15% of the global population experience some form of disability, constituting the largest minority group in the world. Co-designed by augmented identity firm Idemia, the card has been backed by the Royal National Institute of Blind People in the UK and Visions and Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired in the US. So pretty interesting stuff. It's one to highlight that. Something you don't normally think about until or you know someone who has some vision issues. So Mohammed Ameri, chief executive of Ajman Bank, says at Ajman Bank, inclusion is an integral aspect of our corporate culture and social responsibility. Innovation has the power to change the world for the better. We're delighted to partner with Mastercard to be the first movers to help drive this innovative solution that will help us respond to everyone's needs. So really interesting stuff there, guys. Okay, let's move on to the next one. All right, so moving into the crypto space, right? So the community calls out bots spamming crypto Twitter feeds. And so what's happening here? Let's give a quick summary. So essentially, you go on Twitter, right? You might just see some random messages of support this crypto platform or support, whatever. It's bots. It's not a real person saying this or a real community doing it. And what that does is it basically gets people who are maybe not as experienced to say, oh, I see this Twitter message, it must be real news. And they go make a financial decision based on that. So in April, billionaire Elon Musk said in a talk that if he successfully purchases Twitter, one of the top priorities will be the elimination of scam bot armies within the social platform. According to Musk, bots are making the platform much worse, highlighting the issue. So you just it's like feeds of messages when you think, these are thousands of people are jumping on this particular crypto project or whatever, but it's not. It's a scam. There's a cybersecurity analyst, Serpent. He's revealed picks for the most some of these scams. I'm going to put it on our. I'm going to put the link here. Crypto scams, so you can kind of look at it. It can help you out. I'm putting it as part of the. So basically, tips on crypto scams. Let me add it to the video so you guys see it. So it's there. I'm gonna leave it on for a second or two. So when you rewatch this video, it'll be part of it. You could just Google that article at Cointelegraph. If you're on Instagram, you can go to our website and see this live or YouTube. Man, Jimmer said, "Let's go, buddy." That's what's up. Just doing the Twitter waves. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next two are going to be on some cybersecurity news when I get into. So the first one is the IRS, actually. So there's been a data leak exposes personal info of 120,000 taxpayers. So what happened here? The IRS Form 990T that's used to report unrelated business income paid to a tax-exempt entity such as nonprofits and charities or IRA or set retirement accounts This income is commonly derived from sales of unrelated to a nonprofit's core business or real estate investments that pay income to an individual retirement account. On Friday, the IRS disclosed that in addition to sharing Form 990T data for charities, they also accidentally included data for taxpayers' IRAs that were not meant to be public. So it doesn't look like this was necessarily a breach from a third party. It looks like they accidentally did this. You would think spending billions of dollars on the IRS, this type of stuff would be avoided, but guess not. All right, so the IRS recently discovered that some machine-readable XML Form 990T data made available for bulk download section on tax-exempt organization search TO should not have been made public. So this looks like this was an internal error and not necessarily a security breach per se, but data was still exposed by error. The section primarily used by those with the ability to use machine-readable data. Other more widely used sections of TOs are unaffected. So this impacted 120,000 taxpayers. IRS states that the data has been removed and that they will send notifications to affected taxpayers in the coming weeks. So if you get a notification in the coming weeks, you were impacted. So let's move on to the next article. This is the last one. So this is a security issue here, a third-party risk error. So the title of this one is Hackers of Third-Party Providers Stole Customer Data. So what exactly happened? Hackers stole personal data, including social security numbers, addresses, and account numbers of home mortgage holders at KeyBank. The bank reports in a breach of a third-party vendor that serves multiple corporate clients. So the third-party vendor in this case was Overby Seawell. So they're an insurance company. Let's get into their exact background. So Overby Seawell, based in Kennesaw, Georgia, is a provider of compliance-driven tracking technology and insurance products and services for lenders, mortgage services, and property investors. The company is part of Breckenridge Group, which is a specialty wholesale insurance broker. So essentially, third-party risk, right? So what happens? Overby Seawell, they're a third party to banks and different lenders and mortgages. They were breached. In effect, that impacted their clients or the people they're connected to. So what this is known as is more of a supply chain attack, a third party breach, because they're part of the end user's supply chain or one of the third party services that they use. It's the old saying, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So the hackers obtained information on July 5th after breaking into computers at the insurance service providers. Let's get some more details about that. So the investigation confirmed that an unauthorized party had gained access to the company's systems on May 26, 2022. And it appears that a period of unauthorized access lasted until July 5th, which is the same day OCS identified the threat. So it's more than like 2 weeks going on, close to 2 weeks or so. No, I'm sorry, I'm messing up. May, June, July. So so that's looking like an advanced persistent threat, because that was in the system for like over a month. So you can imagine the type of data that was traversed. So not only was KeyBank impacted, but Fulton Bank also. I don't have the list of all the providers, but I'm sure if these guys were in it for over a month and Overby found out about it, they impacted a considerable amount of their customers. Yes, they say in the case of Fulton Banks and Overby, it's no indication that Fulton Bank's data security systems were breached. However, depending on the outcome of the investigation, Fulton Bank could have been negligent in entrusting sensitive customer data to OSC. For example, this may be a case if Fulton Bank had a reason to believe that OSC's data security systems were lacking or that the company had a history of mishandling consumer data. So in general, right, what if you look at that from the end user or the KeyBank or Fulton Bank perspective, right, what's their vendor due diligence process? So it kind of brings into the question, right? So now this breach happened, and if the customers were to file suit, who gets sued in this situation, right? So if you're a Fulton Bank customer and you put it to Fulton Bank, do they then turn it around and sue Oversby? That's Oversby Seawall. OSC is the name that they're going by. So I find that to be interesting. It's something that they say I want to kind of get into. That's what they say here. So following a data breach, especially one involving multiple companies, consumers often wonder which organization is liable for the breach. Generally speaking, under state and federal data breach laws, all organizations have an obligation to protect consumer information in their possession, regardless of how the company came into possession of the consumer's information. Thus, in this situation, both Fulton Bank and OSC owe a duty and care to safely maintain Fulton Bank customers' data. So yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, you think about the insurance aspect of it, because some of these entities have cyber insurance policies, right? Who's responsible? Where does the buck end, right? When you start looking at it from when you have these multiple vendor and third party solutions. They're very interesting. Did Fulton or KeyBank do the necessary vendor due diligence on OSC? Did OSC properly secure their environment? Right. So these are all interesting questions. That's why if you look at things like SOC 2, SOC 2 is essentially a compliance framework, but it's certified by an independent auditor, a CPA, that specifically focused around security, especially when you're in a situation dealing with multiple vendors, right? Does OSC? I don't know this. I didn't look at it at this time, but do they have certain security compliance things that they had to adhere to? Was that a requirement in order to work with these banks and partner with them? So I mean, these are all like questions that would have to come out. But moving forward, this kind of goes into our sponsor, Strategic Generation. They provide SOC 2 readiness services, in which the process is to get you ready, get you in an automated system, and get you towards SOC 2 and get you compliant. So that's one of the services from our sponsor, Strategic Generation. So it's all interesting stuff, and it kind of starts to bring up a lot of questions around security, especially when you're dealing with this type of situation. All right, that is it for today. I'm gonna leave it on. Sometimes people ask questions around some of the topics we discussed. So before I close out for the weekend, I'll leave it on for a few minutes to see if any questions come up that we can answer. Let me look on Instagram. A couple of people just joined, just waved. Okay. Cool. It doesn't look like any questions come up, but I mean, in general, right? Vendor due diligence is extremely important, as we can see, right? Because you can have all of your gates covered, but if your vendor doesn't have the proper security frameworks or proper security standards, then you can be held liable. Like this is what we just saw with KeyBank and Fulton Bank, and with OSC and Oversby Seawall. So definitely something to look into, something to think about. Well, I think that's it for today. As always, thanks for your time. Thanks for watching the show. Definitely appreciate it. We are live every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely check back with us next week. And obviously some weeks we have guests, some weeks we talk about the news, but regardless of which, really appreciate you guys viewing and tuning in live. On that note, I am going to close out. We have a wonderful weekend, and cheers. Thank you.